Afternoon, everybody, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Greg Romero Wilson. I am the host. Here we are. It's time for another edition of Fantasy Football Harsh Reality. This is the show where we deal with the incredible intangibles that are fantasy football. I'm going to be real honest with you guys. My teams are sucking ass. Okay, I have two teams that are 0-2, and I have another team that's 1-1. Now, I'll say this about losing early. It does give you first crack at emerging players at the beginning of the season. So there is some upside to having a rough opening couple of weeks, but that is the only upside. And I'd like to also talk about the way they rate these drafts, because after the draft, my team, I had it was a B+ or something in the Yahoo, but the review was like, Midnight Cowboys should roll, are the team to beat, should roll straight to the playoffs, 12-1. You can count on them. They're the team to beat. Should be easy breezy for them. And I'm sitting on an 0-2 record with that team. The team that the draft report card said was the team that was just, they should be 12-1. So it just goes to show you that draft grades are complete and utter bullshit. Now, I made a couple of bets that didn't pay off, okay? In one league, I had David Johnson. That was tough for anybody that drew first blood in that one. In another league, I had Jordan Howard. That's my league of record, the Silent Nation League. And Jordan Howard is absolutely... And you know what? I knew it. I knew it was my keeper, though. I was getting him for a 4th round, and the value, it seemed like, but my heart wasn't in it. There were other guys that I would rather have at that turn. I could have gotten Marshawn Lynch. I could have gotten Dalvin Cook. I couldn't have gotten Christian McCaffrey. Maybe not Dalvin Cook, but I still could have gotten other guys that I believed in more than Jordan Howard, but the numbers were there. Number 2 rusher last year. It just seemed like, how could you not take Jordan Howard with a 4th round keeper pick? But, and then, here's the first real mistake I made. I did take Tariq Cohen as his handcuff. I had him on my bench, and then for some stupid fucking reason, I was like, hey, you know what? What about Jamal Charles? Because I didn't believe in C.J. Anderson. And, we've seen this resurgent thing kind of happen before with Chris Johnson down in Arizona. And so I was like, oh, maybe that's the, and maybe it will. Maybe that's still in the cards, but it certainly doesn't look that way for Jamal Charles. It looks like he'll just be the occasional change of pace back. And so it's my fucking fault. I blew it. I fucking blew it. And now it's blowing up in my face. And then the other team won handily. It should have won this week. It should have been 2-0 instead of 1-1 in my Comedians League. But Jordy Nelson had to get injured and knock the fuck out. Oh, and here's the other one. I would have won in my league of record, except that fucking Matt Prater hit a 56-yard field goal that bounced in. It hit the crossbar and bounced in. Had he not made that, I would have won game 2. So had that happened, had Jordy Nelson stayed in the game, because I only needed like 6 points out of Jordy Nelson to win that game. So I should have a 1-1, a 2-0, and an 0-2, a legit 0-2. That team, which by the way, the team that's 0-2 is the team I was the least worried about. It was the team that I was the most confident. I thought was the most balanced. I didn't really reach for anybody. I just wrote it out, and instead it's absolutely legitimately 0-2. Primarily, though, but again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that David Johnson got knocked the fuck out in game 1, and and my team's been reeling ever since. Marshawn Lynch is somebody I thought it's clear now, and I'm going to talk about this and the things that I've learned, that whatever I learned from this week, which I hate that now NFL Fantasy Live has a what I learned section. Is that Marshawn Lynch is on a pitch count. He's on a pitch count. He is not going to be used as a workhorse. They will always spell him with Jalen Richard. But I'll also say this. Richard got away this weekend on a couple of big ones, but I don't know how much that's really going to happen. If you're running out to grab him on the waiver wire, he didn't really have that many touches. I just feel like they weren't playing the run whenever he was in the game. But if you think defenses are going to make that mistake again, you're crazy. He's not going to sneak out and get those long runs on the short pass again next week. I promise you that. So first of all, looking back at week 2, let's look at the guys that I said would explode, the guys I liked, the guys I didn't like, and the guys I wouldn't touch, and the guys I wanted to wait and see. So let's start out with the Seattle defense. I was wrong about the Seattle defense. You know, the great thing, though, about the Seattle defense is even when I'm wrong, they still gave me 12 points, which is still pretty good for a defense. But when it's Seattle, versus San Francisco, I wanted 25 to 30 points. I wanted a feast. I have them in explode category, and they did not explode. They had a good day, but they didn't have a great day. And it just goes to show you. And we saw this with Minnesota too this week. No matter how good a defense is, if the offense sputters, if the offense can't stay on the field for more than a couple of downs, that defense will get tired. That defense will wear down, and the other team will eventually score some points on them. As much as I'm loath to say that, that is the case. So while Seattle absolutely should have feasted on San Francisco, instead Carlos Hyde ended up having a pretty good day, which is a guy I did not like. They proved me wrong in that one. And because the Seattle offense, and again, I had picked Russell Wilson as a guy I expected to explode for the year. And I don't know what's going on with that offense, but they've gotten away from their run-first attack. They've tried to become a passing team, and it's just not working for them. They got to get that run game going. They got to stay on that field. They got to use some of that clock, and they got to give that defense a chance to catch their breath. Now, other guys I said would explode. Brady. I said Brady would explode. We were hoping for Angry Brady. We got Angry Brady, baby. So that was exciting. Again, that's why I should have won those other two games. I had Angry Brady. He gave me, 35 points in each league. But then, and just Jordy Nelson goes out, and Jordan Howard gives me 0.3 points. He might as well. He essentially did go out injured because I guess they saw his arm in a sling. So we don't know what's going on with Jordan Howard. And let's be honest, if you're Jordan Howard, are you that eager to get back in there and fucking fight? Fucking, you want Tariq Cohen? Fine. Fucking take Tariq Cohen. And then when he gets injured, Jordan Howard will come back and be the man. But I said Brady would explode, and he did. I said Drew Brees would explode in the same game, and he did. 356 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, gave 27 points. Wasn't quite the same as Angry Brady, but it was still real fucking good. I said Ajayi and Gordon would both go off, and they did. I had Tampa Bay, Winston, and Mike Evans. Woo! They went to town. They went to town on whoever the fuck they were playing. So let's see. I liked Kelsey in a big bounce back game. Boy, did he bounce back in a major way. I like Gronk to explode in a big bounce back. Exactly what happened. Julio Jones, that's exactly what happened. And the Ravens defense versus the Redskins. I expected them to explode. They're on my explode list, and they sure as fucking did, dude. Ravens defense is for real, and I like them this week against Jacksonville. Guys I liked Brandon Cooks. I was wrong about that. He's still finding that rhythm. He's still finding that rhythm with Tom Brady, but I feel like it's coming. Third time might be the charm on Mr. Cooks. I like the Miami receivers, and they did all right. Jacquizz Rodgers I liked, and sure enough, Jacquizz Rodgers came out and had a very serviceable game. You can always count on Jacquizz Rodgers his first week subbing in. Next week, I wouldn't expect too much from him. Kelvin Benjamin in a bounce back. He did okay. He was all right. I liked Antonio Brown, and Antonio Brown actually didn't do that well. I liked James White, and in fact, James White came out and was receiving touchdowns, but Burkhead was the one that wound up getting the touchdown out of that tandem. And I see it as kind of a split between like Gillislee and then James White Burkhead. And so the better money is definitely on Gillislee. I liked Dak and Dez more than Elliott. A lot of people with all the experts were against me on this. They were like, oh, Elliott should have a big day. Dak and Dez are going to struggle because of the pass rush. But I thought they were going to key on Elliott and that would open up some Dak space. And it did to the extent that Dez Bryant still put up great numbers out of volume, out of sheer volume. He ended up having a good day. And Elliott, yes, just like I said, got completely shut down. So I called that one. I called that one right. Dak, he did not have a great day, so I was wrong about that, but I knew that Dez Bryant was going to do better than Elliott. Cooper Kupp I liked, and he disappointed. Poor Cooper. That was a tough game going up against Washington, and they shut him down. Phillip Rivers I thought would have a good game, and he had a very good game. Travis Benjamin I thought would do better than Keenan Allen. I was wrong about that one. Travis Benjamin didn't do shit. And I liked Ted Ginn in that shootout down there in New Orleans with New England, but Ted Ginn, you know what? You're off the team. That's 2 weeks now. Willie Snead's coming back. I don't think it's a third time's the charm thing for you. I just don't think you're ever going to get it. You were always that hot and cold guy in Carolina, and I think you're that same exact guy. Mostly cold, occasionally okay. You're exactly the same in New Orleans. Guys I didn't like. I said Jordan Howard. I was right about that boy. And I hated that because I was hoping I'd be wrong. I played him. I was like, please don't beat you. Come on, prove me. But no, I didn't like him and he stunk. I didn't like Le'Veon Bell. And sure enough, Le'Veon Bell still struggled. He didn't have a great game. I think he got you 87 yards on 27 carries. I didn't like him. But again, third time's the charm. I expect him to really start to begin to break out this week. Gillislee, I did not like because I figured it would be a big James White Burkhead day, which it started out that way. But I think now we've learned that Gillislee is, in fact, the goal line back. He's the guy they're going to use down there. He's the guy they're going to need when they need a couple of yards. His yardage is never going to be huge, but he's probably going to get at least 1 to 2 touchdown opportunities per game. So I was wrong about Gillislee. I didn't like Mariota, and at the beginning of that game, it looked like I was going to be right, but then he came running back, and now we're beginning to see the Mariota that people seem to really be in love with. I didn't like Odell Beckham, and sure enough, he did not have a good game. I don't know if the leg thing is really that hurt. He didn't look that hurt. It's just that offense is fucking eating turds out there. I don't know what the fuck to do. And as a Cowboys fan, I love it. I love it. But man, all I needed was that fucking, sometimes it comes down to stupid things like that. All I need, the ball from Prater, 56 yards, hits the bar, bang, and bounces, and then somehow falls inside the goal. That was it for me. I lost it. At that point, I was just glad to see the New York Giants go up in flames. And again, a lot of it comes back to the running. How could you stick with Paul Perkins? The guy's not a great running back. He's not a winner. He's nobody that you just decide, oh yeah, he's the guy. No, you go out, you draft somebody. You go out, you trade. You try and get yourself a real running back. The fuck, you lost. I mean, oh, Jesus Christ. I don't know what they're fucking thinking in New York. I didn't like Kirk Cousins, and actually Kirk Cousins ended up having an okay day. And I didn't like Keenan Allen. I was totally wrong about that. It looks like Keenan Allen's going to be pretty monstrous until he gets hurt. And trust me, he will get hurt. I said don't touch Carlos Hyde, Garcon, Adrian Peterson, and Crowell. I was 3 out of 4 on that one. Crowell stunk. AP, he's just, until he gets traded to another team, he's useless. But hold him. Don't let him go. Don't wait, because when he goes to another team, and I got a sneaky suspicion that he's going to wind up on the Cowboys. I have a feeling that this thing with Zeke is going to wind up biting them in the ass towards the end of the season, and they're going to panic, and they're going to make a trade for Adrian Peterson. You mark my words, write it down. You heard it here first. Adrian Peterson will be playing down the backstretch for the Cowboys if Zeke Elliott's case ends up getting adjudicated earlier than the end of the season, and I think it will. I don't think this is necessarily going to drag on for a couple of seasons the way others have. The way the Brady one went on through the whole season, got the whole season. I don't see Zeke getting the whole season. I really don't. Guys, I wanted to wait and see. Brandon Marshall, I had to see if there was some chemistry, and boy, was I glad I waited on that. He dropped some easy fucking balls, dude. And so it brings up an interesting question. Okay, are they starting to get on the same page? Or is Brandon Marshall washed up? That's the question. And I think week 3 is going to, again, third time's the charm. Either this is where it begins to click with him and Eli, and he begins to catch. He dropped, it was like a 65-yarder right in the breadbasket, and he just dropped it. And they keep saying, this is a 6-time Pro Bowler. And I'm like, well, I ain't seeing it, but okay, if you say so. I mean, he don't look like no 6-time Pro Bowler right now. But that was what I believed going into the season, that the 6-time Pro Bowler could actually deliver. So we'll see. I said, let's wait and see on Elliott, and sure enough, Elliott ended up having a stink bomb of a game. And I said, let's wait and see on the Arizona RBs, because remember, Kerwin Williams was the big pickup, and everyone's all excited. I said, well, watch out, because Chris Johnson they brought him back too, and now what are we looking at? If you didn't pick up Chris Johnson, try to get him this week. Kerwin Williams looked absolutely terrible. He just looked anemic. He couldn't get anything done. Chris Johnson was able to make some moves in his first week back. I think he's going to actually start to churn some butter this week. Now he's up against my beautiful baby Dallas Cowboys. He's up against the America's team, Dallas Cowboys. But But that doesn't mean he might still have a pretty decent game. The Dallas Cowboys defense is clearly reeling. So, to be honest, I kind of like Chris Johnson this week. Starting this week, I really do. Now, let's talk about what happened in that Dallas game. As a Dallas Cowboys fan, I just want to talk about it for a minute. Because I think what happened is, here's the thing, I grew up in Dallas, all right? I grew up in the 90s, okay? So I've seen what it's like when you have a winning team in Dallas, okay? During the Aikman years. And here's what happens. In Dallas, when you're a winning Cowboys team, they don't treat you like celebrities. They treat you like gods. You float in on a cloud. Virgin sacrifices left and right. Wine, women, and song. Anything you want. All the food. And I feel like, they got the monkey off their back with that Giants win, and I feel like they thought that was the end of the fucking season. Like they won the fucking Super Bowl by beating the Giants, in week 1. And so I think they partied all week. I think they allowed themselves to be incredibly celebrated all over town for more than just that, that one night. And so I think, I think that bit them in the ass. And so I think let's be honest, they got butt fucked on national television. I think that was the best thing that could have happened to them, without question. I think they needed to get there. Elliott looked fat. He looked weird. He just didn't even look like he was. He looked hungover. He looked like he'd been partying for days and was exhausted. Not from fucking working out, from just being out, fucking all that white pussy. And that's what I think he did. So, you know what? That was what they needed. That was the wake-up call they needed. Hopefully they get their heads on straight. And because if they do, Arizona still has a very good defense. And if Chris Johnson is running the ball right, they're going to have real problems come Monday night. And they got to get their heads out, get their heads in the game, and play right. Especially with so many injuries on defense. That defense is absolutely struggling. That's why I like Chris Johnson. I like J.J. Nelson going into next week. Maybe it's time for Larry Fitzgerald. Maybe it's finally time for Larry Fitzgerald to step it up. So I got a lot right. Got a couple things wrong, but I got a lot right. So, now let us, as a group, let's look at, and there were a couple of other things. There were a couple other notes. Look at some other notes. I talked about how I thought the hurricane, obviously it really hurt Houston in week 1. They were very distracted. And then I was wondering how it would affect Tampa Bay and Miami. And I said it would be more of an inspiration for them because they had to sit and watch week 1. Because they watched it happen. They watched everyone else play. I had a feeling they would come out with passion. And sure enough, Tampa Bay came out and just fucking rocked. And Miami... they looked great too. They squeaked past the Chargers, and I said Ajayi managed to get 127 yards against a Joey Bosa defense. Let me tell you something. That Chargers defense is very stout. I like that. Joey Bosa's a monster, and he managed to put him. Now, if he punched in one lousy touchdown, and he would have had a monster day point-wise. But either way, it was still a great day. He still had a great running day, and so it was exactly what I wanted to see. Yeah, if you took Jordan Howard, you were obviously, what a bust. He's the first true official bust of the season, I think, is Jordan Howard. You can point right at him and Adrian Peterson, but Adrian Peterson wasn't a second-round draft pick. Jordan Howard was an end-of-first, top-of-second-round draft pick. So, that's a bust right there. That isn't because of injury. That's just because he's just getting outplayed by Tariq Cohen. And, Adrian Peterson is the same way. You gotta leave him in the game for him to get a rhythm, for him to wear down the defense, for them to begin to wonder when he's going to run and when he's just in there as a decoy. And when you take him out and you try and switch all these guys out, that's never, ever, ever going to happen. In my opinion, you can no longer play Jordan Howard until Tariq Cohen either gets injured or that's the thing. It's also Mitch Trubisky time. It's Mitch Trubisky time. You got to get rid of Glennon. 3 interceptions. I mean, he is what he is. He is exactly what it was in Tampa Bay. There's been no miraculous change. He's not all of a sudden a fucking great. No, he is not. Put in Trubisky. He is your future. They did it down in Houston. Deshaun Watson. He's turning things around, and you could do the same thing in Chicago. Get rid of Glennon. Put in Trubisky. I was sadly right about Adrian Peterson. I said, don't play him. They don't know what to do with him. You're not going to be able to hold on to him, again, because when he finally gets traded to another team, he's going to actually, and gets a chance to really run, he's going to be back to his old ways. Because especially now, having to chomp at the bit and watch other guys fucking do it, the second he gets some real time on the field, he is going to capitalize. Let's see. Oh man, was I right about Bradford? I told you, don't go picking him off the wire because he loves to get injured. Sure enough, didn't even suit up. Now, I made fundamental mistakes. I was out very late on Saturday night after my shows at Laughs in Tucson. That was a great time. Thank you for having me out there in Tucson, man. We rocked that place to the ground. But I didn't check, and I didn't realize that he was actually officially out for the game. I thought he might at least play the game, sore. I didn't realize he was a scratch. And all I have is Chase Daniel, and he couldn't do shit. Oh my God. And consequently, I played Stephon Diggs, and they couldn't do shit. So now we know. Even Dalvin Cook, who looked so amazing in week 1, couldn't get dick going without Sam Bradford. So now we know if Sam Bradford doesn't play, which he could be back this week, might not be back for 6 weeks. They really don't fucking know. If he doesn't play, you got to play Dalvin Cook, but, just understand, I wouldn't play anybody else. I was right about C.J. Anderson showing up. I was worried that might happen to Kerwin Williams, and sure enough, it did. Kerwin Williams is a bust. You might want to, he's being dropped by everybody, me too. Okay, what else do we got? I was right about the Rams floating back down to earth. They sure enough did. I was also right about, Gurley is having that bounce back season. I thought he would. He looks great. I was right about Amari Cooper. I said, welcome to the frustrating world of Amari Cooper. And guess what happened? He dropped 3 passes in the end zone last week. And this week, Crabtree caught 3 touchdown passes. Oh, geez. I wonder if that's the way it's going to be the rest of the season. Good luck with Amari fucking Cooper, because you just can't trust this guy. Let's see. Oh, I was right about everyone in Cleveland. I said, don't play anybody in Cleveland. Sure enough, they stunk. And I was right about their... Oh, and here's the thing that I said at the beginning of the season. I said there was no hangover in Atlanta, and I was right. They look fantastic. They're moving that ball. They beat up on the Packers. So I was right about that. Now, let's look at what I learned. What do we gather? Marshawn Lynch is on a pitch count. I drafted Marshawn Lynch to be beast mode. They clearly are, which, I appreciate that. Now he is a solid RB2 at his current production level, but I expected it to be much greater. But, the fact of the matter is he's actually smarter. He's probably going to last the whole season now. They might play him a little bit more towards the end of the season when they actually need him a little bit more. So I'm actually not that upset about it, but if you're relying on him to really deliver the mail, which I needed him to do now that David Johnson has gone out, unfortunately, he's just an RB2. But, it's fine. He's still doing great. And as I said, don't expect Rashard to rip off those kind of numbers again every single week, because now when he comes in the game, they are going to be looking for him on the short outside pass. Now, Martellus Bennett. He's a guy invested. I believe that he's going to, and I think you're beginning to see it. I think you're beginning to see him see quite a few targets. He did get volume work this week because Jordan Nelson went out, and Randall Cobb went out for a bit, went out for the second half. So that being the case, Martellus Bennett, they're starting to get on the same page. This is a third time's the charm situation. I think this weekend, Martellus Bennett gets into the end zone. Deontay Foreman. He's starting to get the touches in Houston, and I like that. If somebody drops Deontay Foreman and he's available and you have room on your bench, I would pick him up, because I think at every game it's going to be a little more, and just like Jordan Howard last year, it's a little more, and pretty soon it's going to be the Deontay Foreman show. I think this Houston team is starting to gel. I really do. I think they're starting to gel. And so, because Watson's beginning to find Hopkins, then if they get Deontay Foreman going, I like what's happening down in Houston right now. It looks like Chris Thompson's the guy. I said pick up Samaj Perine because I didn't think he was, but it looks like Chris Thompson has the ability to really be productive, and he might be a very strong piece for the Redskins. They need to just stop wasting time with Fat Rob. He fucking sucks. And you know what? They managed to win that game, and they managed to win it because they finally put in Chris Thompson, and Chris Thompson helped him win that game. Now, let's talk about Trevor Siemian. Trevor Siemian looked real fucking good against the Cowboys. What did he throw? 3, 4 touchdowns, something like that? I mean, he put up great. He's had 2 great games in a row. Here's the thing. He did this last year. And I remember doing a whole episode where I was like, is it time to take Trevor Siemian seriously? Here's the difference. This is his second season doing this. And so while I think he did it and then kind of faded a little bit, I think he may be on the rise. I'm actually putting in to pick him up off the waiver wire to keep him as a backup. I'm beginning to like what I'm seeing, especially with that defense. He doesn't have to be incredible, but it really opens the door for him. He gets a lot of opportunities. But let's wait one more week. Let's wait one more week. I put in to pick up Trevor Siemian, provided I don't pick up 6 other players for the 2 slots I'm trying to trade out. So I'm probably not going to pick up Trevor Siemian, but it may be time to start thinking about Trevor Siemian, especially, if you're relying on Tyrod Taylor, if you're relying on Kirk Cousins, the guys that you might want to back him up. Siemian right now is looking consistent as shit, and consistency is a big deal. This is the year. This is the year that Matt Stafford and Eric Ebron actually live up to the hype. This is the year. They looked absolutely fantastic on Monday night, and I never believe in Stafford, but I'm here to tell you right now, there's something so incredibly like vindicating or encouraging, or you have when you get a shit ton of money. When you make a fuck ton of money, you realize that you were right. You are right. Your choices are right. Your style's right. Your work is right. And I feel like that's what happened. The money has made him realize, you know what? I'm the fucking man here, and let's rock. I like Matt Stafford, and I never liked him before. This is the season. I like Eric Ebron. I think he's going to be highly involved. Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall. What do we do about Brandon Marshall? I mean, here's a guy who has all the talent. Now, one more week. Let's wait one more. Let's look. Week 3 should be very telling. Because, again, he didn't get any passes thrown to him in week 1. Week 2, he started to get the passes, but he dropped some really big passes that hit him right in the hands. But to me, that says that they're starting to get the timing down. I mean, it's not perfect, but he's starting to see where he is and put the ball in his hands. I think week 3 might be the week that we begin to see Brandon Marshall become Brandon Marshall. Ooh, Wentz and Jeffrey. Oh, my God. Wentz and Jeffrey, they're starting to find it. They're starting to put it together. This is why I drafted Alshon Jeffrey. I was afraid to draft him. I thought I should go with Kelvin Benjamin in that league, and I did in a different league. But I like what I'm seeing out of Alshon Jeffrey and Carson Wentz. I think they're really starting to find the rhythm. I expect Jeffrey to start his trajectory to start really starting to climb to where he works his way into, quite possibly by the end of the season, an elite wide receiver 1. Jack Doyle has value again with Jacoby Brissett. If you dropped him as I did because of what was going on with Tolzien, I think we're beginning to see real volume out of him with Jacoby Brissett. I like Jack Doyle. Pick him back up. Coby Fleener. I think Coby Fleener's finally going to have the big year. He seems to really have some chemistry going with Drew Brees. He scored a touchdown for the 2nd week in a row. I like Coby Fleener. Michael Thomas, man, if you drafted Michael Thomas, you're disappointed. He's not finding the open ground. And again, a lot of it had to do because last year that number 1 defender was on Brandon Cooks. Now it's on Michael Thomas. And that's what happens in these situations when one guy, you were benefiting from the other guy taking some of those resources out of your way. That guy's gone. Now it's on you. Now we find out what you're really worth. And it turns out right now, Michael Thomas is looking pretty pedestrian. Martavis Bryant, though, he showed up last week. I mean, this is what happens when the defense focuses on your number 1 guy. Your number 2 guy can explode, and that's what we saw this week. They focused on Antonio Brown. Martavis Bryant became the man, and that's it. There it is. Is that going to happen every single week? Absolutely not, but I think he's going to have a very good season, and I think you can count on him as a flex. Let's talk about waivers. So, I mean, that's I think what we learned this week. There's a lot of question marks for teams. Seattle's offense, Indianapolis. I mean, is what's his name going to come back? The Arizona Cardinals squeaked out a win, but they didn't look too good doing it. So will Chris Johnson make a difference? So. Lot going on, big weekend. I took some tough losses, but I don't mind. You know what? It's early in the season. I'm not panicking. And you can't either, you know. And also, if you were 2-0, don't think you're waltzing right into the end zone because it's still a long ways away. It's still, what was it? The playoffs are still 11 weeks away. So temper your expectations. And this week, let's talk about waiver wire pickups. I like Chris Johnson. Pick him up if he's still available in your league. J.J. Nelson, obviously, he's becoming a real factor down there in Arizona. I don't know if it's because they're throwing so much heat at Larry Fitzgerald or maybe he's just old. But right now it looks like J.J. Nelson has developed some real chemistry with Carson Palmer. I like Jack Doyle, as I said, and Chris Thompson out of Washington. I think now's the time to grab Chris Johnson Johnson and Chris Thompson. The Johnson-Thompson twins, the Chris twins. So that's what I like. So quite a week. I lost all 3 of my games this week, and it was a tough, that hurt. But that's the way it goes sometimes. Injuries are a big part of the game. It cost me 1 game, and, you know, it obviously has affected my team in the other league with the loss of David Johnson. So, you know, and that's the thing. For you guys that are 2-0, for you guys that are, you know, that are rolling right now, just remember, just because the injury bug hasn't hit your team yet, it doesn't mean it's not going to. You got to be on the lookout, and these are the things that wind up affecting games and wind up affecting seasons. So sometimes it is better to get these things out of the way, and that's how I'm going to look at this. That's the silver lining I'm looking for. If you have fantasy football questions about your lineup, who you like, who you should start, please tweet me at the Greg Wilson, TheGregWilson. And while you're there, help me out with my Twitter campaign to land a Netflix special. All you got to do is retweet the top pinned tweet on my profile on Twitter. So be sure and check that out. Also, if you could like my Facebook fan page, it's /The Greg Wilson, The Greg Wilson 1, I think, actually, on Facebook. So just look up Greg Romero Wilson on Facebook and like my fan page, or follow me on Instagram. That's /The Greg Wilson 1 as well. So a lot of fun this week. I look forward to doing the pregame for you guys on Friday. I know I got it out on Saturday last week, but let's face it, not that many people watch this. You guys have been a lot of fun. What a week. I'm excited. Go Cowboys.